way. Hugely appreciated.
That's all right.
Yeah, definitely. It's awesome. Thank you.
I think it's recording. Okay, cool. So yeah, basically I always take marketing teams and sales teams through this, just a quick overview, because the number one thing that marketers hate doing is learning new marketing technologies, developing and executing campaign flows, and managing prospect data. So I try and make it really easy and simple for them to understand how Salesforce works, so that they're quite willing to jump in there. Whenever I enter a new environment, the first thing that I do is I usually set up the tabs at the top according to customer experience. So you will notice later on, if we do end up getting Pardot, for example, then that will be easily added as an app, and it will appear up the top as one of these tabs in your instance. I would set it up so that Pardot comes first, leads come second, contacts third, accounts fourth, and so on. But what I'll actually do is I'll show you how that process works, so that you can kind of decide how you want to set up your tabs as well. So generally, leads are the newest records that come in, and I'm also going to show you how I would kind of check how an instance is set up in a second. And leads are humans, they're a human record, person record. And then when you convert a lead, so one of the main things that we want to do is convert leads in most environments. It becomes 3 different records. Each of these are also called objects. So there's the lead object, contact object, account object, and opportunity object. And as I said, converting a new lead usually creates 3 different records. So the lead becomes a human contact record connected to an account, which is usually a business record, not always. And opportunities are usually created when you actually have an opportunity to create financial revenue with a company. The other bit that I'll just quickly show you, and then we'll come back to these as I kind of go through each of the different objects. But this one here, this is what I call a diagram, because I only know how to use Excel and I don't know how to draw. But this diagram here, this is actually showing how each of the objects in Salesforce, so those little kind of tables or spreadsheets that we've just been talking about, how each of those are connected and what system they're in, and where the connections are. So the connections are usually via ID. So in this case, the orange across the top is demonstrating how the tool Pardot actually connects prospect IDs. So that includes IP address and what is called a Pardot prospect ID, with their Salesforce CRM ID, which I'll explain in a minute. That is a human ID, can be either a lead or a contact ID. And that connects through to the Salesforce account ID, which is the business ID. And then that connects through to the opportunity ID. So there's only a couple of tools right now that very, very easily connect across each of the different objects in Salesforce. And Pardot is one of those. So it would be good for us to get across that. And then the other object is Salesforce Campaign, which we will go through. So the campaign object is another one that really easily connects across each of these mini databases. And then you'll probably hear lots of discussion around other tools that people are trying out, especially automation tools, segment, intercom, demand-based. Also, there is an additional B2B analytics configuration that's available in Salesforce. So there are other ways to connect between all of these objects, but generally, it's not as easy to pull reports or to get information in between each of these objects. So we'll come back to that as we go through it. Okay, so if I was jumping into this Salesforce instance for the first time, as I said, I would rearrange my tabs at the top. So it's really easy to do that. I don't know if anyone wants to kind of follow along and do it as they go, but you'd personalize your nav top right-hand corner. And like I said, in the order that it flows through is kind of what makes sense to me. Then I would jump into each one. So generally, when you first land, this may be blank. And I think a lot of people get really confused because it's like they will turn up on each of these tabs, they'll push around and everything seems to be blank. The reason for that is because of what's been pinned. So I would usually go in, the biggest mistake that we all make is that it will say, for example, my leads when you first join an instance, whereas you may not have any leads yet. So you'd want to go straight in, click on that pull down and say all open leads or all Datarati leads, or just check what other lists are available and kind of just, dive into each view. In this case, I've just chosen Datarati leads and I've pressed the pin button. And you can kind of go through and do that on each of your tabs, each of your object tabs within your Salesforce. And then that will give you a quick view of what the admins and the people that use this most often, this instance most often, how they've set it up, what they thought was most important, and pretty much how they are setting up their object database. So then you go through quickly, make sure that you've got a view of actual data on each of your tabs. So accounts, you'll see here, I've chosen the CX team view. That's my pinned list. And opportunities, I've chosen all opportunities. And campaigns, Datarati campaign view, reports, and in this case, I think it's most recent, so I'll change it to all reports, and dashboards. Really simple navigational tip is if you press on anything with an up arrow, it reverses the order. When you dive in, so what I'm going to do right now, after I've set up my objects across the top, kind of in that CX order, the next thing I do is test out the system. So in this case, and I think it'll be interesting to see because I actually don't know the answer. I'm going to use my personal Gmail. Yeah, you don't know me yet. Okay, cool. So we all know, looking at this form, like we can pretty much guess where it goes. But I'll just quickly fill this one in and see if that gets me into Salesforce. And I would do this for my customers, or if I was joining a new client. Yep, so now I've downloaded. And then I would just, give it a few seconds and then go check and see, did that come in? Oh, no, not yet. So that could just be timing, or it could be the fact that I filled in an MC form. In this case, I've then just found another one. Again, I don't know if this will work, but I'm just going to quickly fill this one in. And if not, we can just create a test record.
They're not connected, Kristen.
See, there you go. Well, so
sorry to ruin your fun here, but yeah, the MC is not connected to the CRM yet.
Okay, all good. So what I'll do here, it's pretty much on. Yes, it is. Hello.
One is and one isn't. Okay, cool. That's been done recently.
So here we go. 12:13. All right, so here I am, and I am a new lead record. So just to go back to our little here. So right now I'm just a lonely lead record. And what the next thing that I'm kind of going to look into understanding how this instance has been set up, I'm going to find out what does happen when I try to convert this lead. What are the stages that this lead has to go through, statuses or stages? And usually, so if I kind of owned a product or an instance, I would go in and document this. I would go in and say, so what are the required fields on every single object? Like how are those fields mapped together? What are the back-end names of those fields, and so on. So that's what I would do if I was going to be spending a lot of time either building apps that integrate with it or building landing pages or so on. But in this case, we'll just quickly have a look at the front end. And also, I'm sure you all know, but just because you see fields at the front end, that doesn't mean that they are all the fields. There are many hidden fields, so I'm sure you experience that all the time. So here I am. You can see these are our statuses, our lead statuses that get us through the process through to converted. So the ultimate goal for any lead record is to convert that lead record. All of the back-end reporting in Salesforce is built, pretty much expecting that you will convert that lead. The other thing that we're going to check as we go through this process is what actually happens to this ID up here. So depending on how the instance was designed, the way that I would recommend doing it would be when you convert that lead record through to a contact record, so the two different types of human records, I would want it to maintain that same ID. But then for many, many reasons, depending on what's happened with that instance in, legacy situations, that might not happen, but I am interested to find out how that will work. So these are my lead statuses. You would always want to check which fields are mandatory. In this case, open, working, recycled, unqualified, and converted, very, very standard. Last name is mandatory. Email is not mandatory. So that's interesting. Recycle reason, which can obviously be the trigger to put it into a new journey. The other thing that I find extremely interesting is lead sources, whether they are like kind of custom or out of the box. In this case, these are custom lead sources, which after looking a few times, you'll get to know the difference between them. And yeah, so that's just a general kind of view of what is available on a lead. Under the related tab, depending on how we've set it up, we can, this could be where, for example, we would find, if we've set it up right, we could find lists that we've opted out of or opted into, campaigns that we've been involved in. So again, I'll go through the campaign object in a minute. We could find conversations when we've got Pardot. Like if we integrated Pardot into this instance, you could find exactly what pages they visited on the website, what their score is, what they've downloaded, all of that information. So that's what you would find on a lead record. In this case, I'm going to skip. Is there any questions on this lead record before I attempt to convert it? No? Okay, cool. All right, so usually you would document somewhere in a business like what each of these means, who works it, so who should look after lead records, who should convert them, who should create opportunities, and so on. And that would be something that you would kind of, depending on your role in the business, you'd know that you'd need to have an understanding of how that would work. In this case, I'm going to attempt to skip straight to converted. So in some instances, I won't be able to do that because there will be progressive profiling required, but in this, I'm going to just see how that goes. And I'm going to use the shortcuts. So convert, and then here it will tell me, just to flick back to this diagram, what exactly is going to happen. So in converting my lead, will I create 3 new records and so on? That's what we're about to find out. Okay, and then also we want to see here whether this changes. So here I can choose to connect to an existing account or create a new account. I would always recommend that you would choose or try to find an existing account. It's just best practice. I don't know if we'll have our own account in our own system. No, okay. In that case, we're not. And then again, you would choose whether you wanted to create new or choose existing. As in any database, each of these objects, we would want to avoid duplication. So if there is an existing contact, then it's best if, I think that will usually be matched based on email address, but it's best if we don't create a new record because we don't want duplicates. We don't want people accidentally falling into multiple journeys. In this case, they haven't matched me, so I don't have to choose existing. If I was already in the system, it would make me choose between different field options if there were different answers and merge those records together. And then in this case, as is usual, I am being given the opportunity to create an opportunity. I don't want to mess with our reporting. So in this case, you know what, I might just create it in. Change my mind. I'm going to create an opportunity. Cool. And converting with a converted status. You shouldn't have any other option. Again, this ties into all of the reporting that we'll do maybe in later sessions. So my lead has been converted. And I now have my 3, which I might actually screenshot. I now have my 3 new objects. Oh, sorry, 3 new records within my 3 objects. Sorry, I just want to put this here. You guys will notice that I screenshot everything, and I apologize for that. But you never know when you're going to need it. Cool. Okay, so I'm going to check this one here, the Q2 HVO XEAS. Be interesting to see if this has, no, it has a different ID. Okay, so I don't know the reason for that, and there's many reasons for that, but in this case, this ID has changed. In some instances, that will stay the same as you convert through from a lead to a contact. So I can now see that I'm a contact record. Now contacts, there's in a standard build, there's only 2 different types of contacts. There's primary contact on an account, and then there's just another contact on an account. So here, this is where you will see, so the account is the business that I'm connected to. So here, this is my account. So see how I've just jumped there between objects. So I clicked on the contact and I jumped to the account, and that is just leading back to, that is because the way that these 2 objects are connected is between my contact ID is now connected to an account ID. So see here, either, so my lead, I'm no longer a lead, I'm now a contact. My contact ID becomes my CRM ID, and that ID is now linked through to the account ID. So between those 2 objects, those are the ID links, which when we do kind of have a look at reporting, we can see where we can find those IDs. So go back under my contacts. And see what else we can find on here. Okay, so is this a key contact? As I said, generally there will be 1 key contact for an account. This can cause all sorts of issues with marketing automation platforms. And this is why tools like Pardot and so Pardot is more for prospect marketing, and tools like Demand-Based, for example, which is for account-based marketing. That's why the need for these tools has arisen, because of how the connections between these databases work. So in the case of Demand-Based, which is a account-based marketing tool, I'm saying I would like to advertise. So I have all of these accounts that I know. So that's the actual business. I've got all of the account IDs, and I know that I'm doing business with them, or they look like, they look like potential opportunities because they are similar industry or so on to somebody that I've done business with before. But I want to go and talk to them on Facebook. So you can't actually talk to a business on Facebook. You can't talk to a business on Google. You need to find the humans that work at that business. And so tools like Demand-Based will help you connect all the way backwards from an account ID, which is a business ID, the only information that we have, and connect that all the way back to what we'd call a suspect IP address. So again, back in here. And that the reason that we need tools like that is because of me ticking this key contact. That means that if we do any work with that account, it will just assume that I'm the connector, basically. I'm the connector between the humans and the businesses. So the contacts are the humans, accounts are the businesses, and if I tick key contact, then I'm pretty much the only piece of data that's connecting those 2 different items. So obviously, if you've got a marketing background, you can understand how that can make marketing hard. And yeah, so I'm sure you've come across that many, many times. And here, I'm going to related. So when I press the convert lead option, we chose to create an opportunity, and here is my opportunity. So you can see here, these are related to me. The 3 items: account, opportunity, and on a contact. I think the other pretty important things, you would obviously, you can usually add into, often there's a really simple add into campaign button. I don't know if I've just missed it. Maybe we haven't got it set up, but yeah. But one thing that you can do with contacts, so your humans, is just add them into campaigns. So we'll talk through the campaign object in a minute. Unless it's on the first tab. No. Okay, cool. And then you can also log activities, tasks. So for example, I can set myself a reminder, which will appear on my home screen. I probably should have gone into the home screen with you guys. I'll dive into that in a minute. But I can set myself reminders. I can, you know, say, check if this person has moved company to a new company, you know, check if I need to reattach them to a new account or so on, and then put reminders in there. I can attach log a call, new event, and maybe campaigns. Oh, and then send email. Okay, cool. Yeah. So yeah, and that's like pretty much, yeah, all that needs to be done on the contact, apart from, for example, we would have my preferences in here if I've opted in or out of certain lists, or if I've unscribed entirely, or if I've decided which channel I'd like to be contacted on, or so on. So yeah, that's the contact. Just checking my hierarchy. Okay, so now I'm going to dive into Datarati as an account. Again, so there should be only me. But generally, there should be related contacts, and you can actually manually add relationships. This is where it often breaks, because sales reps, when they're managing their CRM, they don't always add those relationships, and that makes it a bit difficult for marketers. But if you ever add a contact in, and you know they work for a certain company, then make sure that they're associated with an account, and usually it won't allow you to do that without associating them with an account. But some instances, there will be lots of people who have uploaded contacts without proper account associations, and that can cause difficulties for marketing platforms later. So news. So this is an interesting piece. I might just jump into home to show this as well. So your home tab, I've actually added the dashboard, I think. I don't think that was standard. But you can favorite things to add to your home. Recent opportunities. So obviously if I'm a sales rep or in the CX team, I'm checking my opportunities, and I would come in, and the ones that I've viewed most recently, I'd probably want to dive into them again, so they come up on the right hand side. And then account news. So this is one of my accounts, and all of the news has been pulled in automatically. And then I can see opportunities. If I had set myself a task, so on that contact object where there was tasks like calls or anything like that, that is there. And I can also move this right up the top if I'd like. And this here is pulling in a dashboard. So that's a different object. We'll go into dashboards quickly at the end. Okay, cool. So back into account. Any questions so far? Boring talking to myself.
For me.
All good.
Okay, cool. Okay, so accounts. I will go into one that actually has, yeah. So again, just another record on another object, but this is the business account business record type. We've got details here. So this is another place where you find quite a lot about a business. So if I was trying to quickly get to know a business, I would find out, have they put in the standard industry fields, or have they, for example, aligned to GICS or SIX or some other industry standard code? Have they used Salesforces? Have they made them up? Like, yeah, so you can learn quite a bit from anything that has a pull down menu. Just check how that's been set up. Obviously, we are using this methodology to figure out which product the account has. Like some companies, they will have a completely separate product object. I actually prefer the method that we're using. Thanks, MJ. Because again, working between objects can get quite difficult. But this, like finding out which products they sell, which features, having any pricing, anything like that available, you can learn a lot from diving into the pull down menus and the required fields. So see here, this is how we're profiling our customers at the moment, or sorry, we're profiling our accounts. So all of these, this actually gives us insight into how the business is strategically structured or operationally structured. And what else? What else is interesting? Yeah, lots of plugins available.
You can go into the related, Kristen, and see what other things are tied to it.
Yeah, cool. So we seem to have a good account manager here. So he has actually tied his contacts back to his account, which is excellent. And also an opportunity. Yeah, so that's awesome too. And then there's like files and notes. And so, yeah, so this is quite a well-managed account here. Go Rich. Okay, cool.
It's actually Phil.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. But yeah, so again, at the account level, you can also log tasks and so on. I'm just going to go into, maybe I'll check one of these opportunities. So now see how we've just jumped along yet another object. So now we're in the opportunities object in this case. And the most important probably thing that you need to learn in any business the second you walk in is how are opportunities managed, and how do you push an opportunity through to closed one. So closed one is the ultimate. It says closed because every opportunity should be closed because that helps with your reporting, but closed one is what we actually want to reach. So in this case, this one is sitting in the proposal, price and quote stage, but our stages to push an opportunity through to the closed one ultimate is prospecting, needs analysis, value prop, proposal and quote, negotiation review, and closed one or closed lost. With closed lost, you will usually have to choose a lost reason, which helps us with analysis and with improving our journeys and so on. And then, yeah, if there's for some reason takes too long to make a decision. Yep. And then again, you can learn a lot about a company from their lost reasons. Sometimes it's really terrifying. People, you'll just jump in here and there'll be like 32 different lost reasons and 10 of them mean exactly the same thing. You know, a few of them don't make any sense. So often if you are having difficulty in segmentation, these can be ways to improve that. If you jump in and see, you know, how can all of these be wrapped up into larger audiences? How can this be better segmented? Should we consider on the contact record, for example, should we consider enforcing collection of certain roles, job titles? Should we start to segment and talk to people based on industry? And should we set up our journeys based on these kinds of stages? Yeah, those are the kinds of things that you'd ask when you first jump into an instance, which I'm sure you guys do anyway. Yeah, so that is an opportunity. And like I said, the ultimate would be closed and closed one, but this is a real one, so I'm not going to muck around with that for now. But yeah, so the next object is campaigns. So this is one of my favorite and most useful and most but underutilized Salesforce tool. So if you jump back into my diagram, campaign is one of those objects that, I mean, it's a bit It's not always perfect, but it's one of those objects that can connect all the way through from hypothetically a prospect ID. So say if you do have Pardot or something like that integrated, or if you're doing using UTM, Google UTMs for AdWords advertising, so on, then you can tie audiences via prospect ID into the campaign. But even within the Salesforce system, it's the most reliable way, out of the box way to connect a human, so that's the CRM ID, either a lead or contact ID, through to the account, which is the business ID, and through to the opportunity ID. And that's where, like, this is one that you'll have to spend a lot of time in, especially if you're managing a finance function or trying to manage reporting. Within a business, you'd have to work tying, how did we influence this person? Did we invite them to an event? What email did we send them? And how does that tie back to the revenue is one of the most difficult questions within any business. And so, that this is like a really important object. So, campaign object. You guys probably use campaigns all the time, but the basic use for them, there's different out-of-the-box types of campaigns. I might actually just, let me create a new one. Where? Oh, I don't need a list, I want an actual campaign. Oh, am I blind? Is there no create new campaign?
You may not. Try the little drop down on the campaigns tab.
Oh, yeah.
No, you may not have access. Sorry.
That's all right. I'm not an admin anyway, so it's okay. That's cool. But so usually you would have campaign access, and then within that you can see, again, you can check how a business is using campaigns, and that you can make a lot of recommendations around that as well. So campaigns can be used in journeys as DEs, and they can be used for different stages. Pretty much all of statuses, for example, can be used as a toggle. You can get an admin to rename these, and it can be, opened email versus clicked email, or attended event, or whatever it is. So campaigns can be used and integrate between Salesforce and Marketing Cloud very, very easily. And then there's types of campaigns, and again, there's out of the box, which I think, that looks a little bit customized, but so lots of types of campaigns. The most important thing that I will tell everyone, just like any of our lists or any of our assets in Marketing Cloud, is naming conventions are the most important thing. And you should always start with reverse year, month, day order, and then anything that's like alphabetical. So I have loads of documentation on naming conventions. If a customer ever asks about naming conventions for campaigns, tracking codes, asset filing, or anything like that, let me know, because I'm kind of the queen of filing. So that's kind of like the other most important thing is to always put a start date and an end date on campaigns, and also to always put the budget in. Then that actually helps with reporting later on. So correct housekeeping throughout each of these is what's going to get you accurate reporting at the end. Cool. Now, the fun stuff. Going to all reports. So the difference, does everyone know what the difference is between a report and a dashboard? Surely you do. But basically, this is a dashboard view, and behind each of these modules is the actual report. So you can always dive straight into the report. Obviously, I don't think you can edit other people's, but you wouldn't edit other people's. But then sometimes you might have a question, like, you can use filters. If you ever pull a report, click into report, and it has no data, it will nearly always be because the date range, you're saying something like, this month, and it's the first day of the month, or nothing has happened yet. Or the other most common issue, if you're seeing something with no data, is that you're looking at my opportunities when it's actually under someone else's opportunities, for example. Always just check your filters. So that's the filters button. And then the good thing is, I know we've all been forced onto Lightning and I think we're all used to it, but in reports especially, there are often reasons that you might want to jump back into Classic, Salesforce Classic, so that you can pull that. So that is available in there. Subscribe, so when you set up a report or a dashboard, you can subscribe yourself or other people. You can have it emailed to yourself, you can export the raw data, and any of these, like obviously very, very easy to toggle on and off. And that doesn't save, so don't worry, I'm not breaking anything. But yeah, like reporting, you can see, you can judge a lot based on who's actually active in a CRM, who cares about the data, who's using it regularly, and yeah, and the structure of the business by how these reports are designed. So yeah. Dashboards, the next one. So dashboards are where you're pulling a group of reports in together. This is our home one. Yep. And like these are really, really, really easy to edit. Like I don't, because it's not mine, I can't edit it. But I recommend that you just jump in and create a couple of reports and dashboards, just because you never know when a customer will ask for help. Or if you need to pull data or anything like that, and it's just good to have that experience, and it literally takes like 5 minutes, and it's, you know, a little bit of educational fun. Yeah, so they are the current objects that we have in Salesforce, our Salesforce instance. As I said, every instance is different. A couple of the things to keep an eye on, as I mentioned before, sometimes, like, so for JLR, for example, when you convert a lead, it becomes an account. And I don't know if that's all the time or just sometimes. I haven't been able to completely dive in and understand it all yet. So there will be rare instances in, where things like that happen. Some instances allow you to have duplicate leads, whereas my strong preference and recommendation is if somebody is setting up a new instance fresh, then you would recommend to them that the marketing automation tools actually check to find out if it, maybe based on email address, for example, but they check if the record is already in Salesforce CRM. And if it's there, do not create a new lead record, do not create duplicates. Any time that you have duplicate records, human records, so that means leads and contacts, within a database, you're going to have big issues. But yeah, so what else is important? That becomes especially important when you start to plug in additional tools. So here's one example. This is a human, but that exact same human could be, depending on how an instance was set up, there could be a people in SalesLoft. So SalesLoft is a new kind of business, so sales automation tool designed by the makers of Pardot. But yeah, so SalesLoft has people, Pardot has prospects, Salesforce has leads and contacts, and it could actually be the exact same person. And you'd have to be very, very careful with how you've connected your automation platform to your CRM, because otherwise you're going to be sending people down different paths. They could easily meet the criteria in multiple lists. Like any database, you have to be extremely, extremely careful. What else? I think that's all. So I kind of, I didn't have much of a plan. I just kind of wanted to take you through how I would check a new Salesforce instance and see how it's working, and what I would hope to learn from it. And yeah, just kind of having a plan for how each different part of your business would use it, who needs to know what the statuses and stages are. These statuses and stages are so important for us in automation, and it would save us a lot of time just knowing what are the minimum required fields, what are the statuses and stages, and what's the word? Kind of locked fields. I think that's probably the most important thing that you'd learn the second you start working with a customer, and then what their actual name is, the backend name. So yeah, that's my tour. hope that was useful.
Very
I'm
much so. Thanks, Kristen.
hearing myself.
Yeah,
You're
thank
welcome.
you.
Thanks.
Okay, guys, I shall see you in a couple of hours.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
No worries.
Cheers. That was
Cheers.
awesome.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.